Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of America's Voices, where we're bringing Americans together from across the political spectrum to go underneath the headlines and discuss what really matters. Now more than ever, we need grassroots conversation to find the common ground so we don't perpetuate the polarization. So for tonight's topics, we have the Keystone Pipeline and how it ties into the Texas crisis, America's energy dependency, and where do we go from here? Other topics to talk about is the growing case against a growing case of impeachment for Cuomo and recalling of Newsom, and what the actual policy and corruption, what are the facts at hand that are promoting this? And we'll see what else we have time for. So in the meantime, let's say hello to some new faces in this call today. So let's start with some old faces. Mark, can you say hello to everybody?
I take that personally. It's an age assault. Hi, my name is Mark, and I'm a registered Republican, and I tend to be predominantly Republican at this time.
Okay, awesome. Shirley.
Hi, my name is Shirley, and I am a registered Republican, and I could appreciate some of the values that the left wants to discuss, but I'm predominantly conservative Republican.
Okay, David.
I am a proud Democrat. And I'm glad everybody's not saying they're moderate tonight.
Oh, I'm still going, David. I'm still going. Yes. Okay, and Miss Power, would you like to join us and share your affiliation?
Hi, my name is Power, and I'm a registered Republican.
Welcome to the call.
Thank you.
I, your host, Daniella Bloom. I'm a registered independent. I'm center-leaning right at this point. Better, David? I didn't say moderate.
David, I almost had another Democrat for you. I almost had a real liberal Democrat, but he wasn't feeling good tonight, so he couldn't come on. But he'll be here next week, and he's looking to get me. It's my son.
Yeah. Wouldn't that be fun?
Oh, no,
Yeah.
I think he's very bright.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure if he's your son.
I know he's wrong most of the time. He's still very bright.
Yeah. Yeah. And you funded his liberal education. So
I did.
We'll
Yes,
talk
I
about
went to
that.
school
Yeah.
Republican and came out a dumbass.
Yeah.
I always tell him that.
Yeah. More on that later. So I know David and Mark in particular, both of you are very passionate about the Keystone situation, as am I. And I know how much we value research and facts, and I've tried to do my own research and I keep getting conflicting information. So I would love to hear from the two of you where you stand on Keystone. From my perspective, I understand that it is the most zero emissions pipeline, and that closing it down not only has lost jobs to Canadians and Americans, but has made us even more dependent on energy, having us go out of our country to other countries in the Middle East. And it's really not, closing down the Keystone Pipeline has not really made us less energy independent, only more so. So yeah, and then we're gonna break it down into Texas too, and what you guys think the course of action to Texas should be, so we're not in this kind of crisis again. Okay, so who would like to start? Oh, good, we have Joel. Okay, hold on. Joel is joining us too. Let's just let him say hello before and catch him up with what we're going into. Hi, Joel. We're glad you're back.
Kind of back.
Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, well, you're still on mute. Okay, I hear you now. Okay. We just want you to.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, that's okay. Welcome to the call. We just want you to introduce yourself and your affiliation before we're jumping into to Keystone. That's our first Keystone and how it ties to Texas.
Oh, so yeah, sorry about that. My name is Joe Patrick. My power just died. So I had to get back on again. But anyway, my name is Joe Patrick. I am a lifelong Democrat, but for the first time in 2016, Republican. And I'm happy to be here today on America's Voices.
Yay. Okay. So we're going to dive into Keystone. And
Boom.
Yeah, boom. We're just going into it because Keystone will lead us to Texas. And then from there, we'll go to New York and California. So, okay. So, David, Mark, who would like to open up the discussion?
Do you want to play rock, paper, scissors, David?
That would be
No,
fun.
I think am I muted? No.
Yeah.
I think one of the things, let's break it down into, Danielle, you brought a number of things that are debatable on Keystone. So I'd rather,
Okay.
if we could just kind of go through some smaller elements of it before we try to tackle all of it.
Sure.
So I think once again, I'm trying to get to some shared facts of how many jobs is it really taking? What is really the crude involved? Like each one is, and so that we could kind of solve each individual issue before we take a bigger look.
And I would also like to first start, if I may, by looking at what President Obama said about the Keystone Pipeline. I'd also like to go into what John Kerry said and what was the purpose of killing the pipeline. So can I read something from President Obama? It's a direct quote. The Keystone Pipeline became a symbol too often used as a campaign cudgel by both parties rather than a serious policy matter. All of this obscured the fact that this pipeline would not be a silver bullet for the economy, as was promised by some, nor the express lane to climate disaster proclaimed by others. And I couldn't agree more. John Kerry, on the other hand, said it was strictly for climate change and to protect the environment. And those are direct quotes. And I think what bothers me the most about that is, does anybody think by protecting the climate through the killing of the Keystone Pipeline, do you really think that Canada's going to stop producing oil? Do you think Canada's going to end it? Because there's an existing Keystone Pipeline that goes down from Canada to Texas. You do realize that. It was built in three parts, 1, 2, 3, and 3A. The XL portion means extra large. They were going to pump more barrels down on a diagonal. And if you want to really change the climate, you have to change consumer behavior, not the pipeline, because you can get the oil by truck, you can get the oil by train, you can get the oil by barge, of which barge is the worst option for environmental reasons, and I can go through all that. But you need to change the people's how they're going to do it. Now, that may come on supply side economics by cutting off the supply, which the Keystone Pipeline doesn't do, because the XL pipeline just increases the production of the Keystone, but doesn't cut it off. And there's nothing to replace it right now. So on the supply side of economics, it doesn't stop a thing. But what it will do is raise the price of gasoline at the pump, because the pipeline is the cheapest and safest method. Okay, now I'll leave that open to everybody else.
Okay. That's what I was coming up with as well.
So,
Okay. I just want to throw a couple other things in before we get to it. One of the issues that a lot of people bring up is the job aspect of it. And how many jobs have supposedly been lost, or I don't think they've been lost, where they're just not going to be realized. And the amount of really ongoing jobs, once the pipeline's built, there, I think it's 50 jobs, 30, which are mostly in Canada, to maintain the pipeline.
Oh,
But
I didn't get those numbers. I got in the tens of thousands.
that's a 1 year that's construction, not maintenance, not after. And even that's up to debate as far as how many that is. I think they laid off 1,000 people when it got stopped, because that's all they've been hired. The rest were theoretically going to be hired to finish the pipeline.
But that might just be on the America side. I know there's also tons of jobs lost on the Canadian side.
All I care about, I think we care about America's voices. I'm not worried about Canadian dollars right now.
But they are an ally.
But I want, right, but I don't think we would put a pipeline in for them. We're doing it for us.
well, I think there's mutual benefit. But Shirley, did you want to say something?
About the pipeline? Actually, I had an opportunity to see the pipeline almost in the summer of 2019. Yeah, 2019. It was very nice to see it, but I really didn't understand much about it. It's not like, comes to life when you actually see the problems that can be generated when one administration decides to build the pipeline so that this way we don't have to depend on oil from other countries, and also it will give us jobs. And the other administration all of a sudden shuts down the pipeline without, it's like, I think that there should have been a transition period.
Well, sure. That's where history comes in. I mean, you could say the same thing, the opposite, when Trump came in and changed Obama's policy to not put a pipeline in. I mean, once again, they changed the previous administration. This administration changed it again. But I think it's been consistently jumped.
Why are they jumping it?
Okay.
Why does it keep going?
The argument for blocking it is that ultimately it's the worst type of crude you could put through a pipeline. It's the tar sands, which is a bad oil, which has, when it leaks, it does more damage than regular crude. So it's a more expensive, dirtier, tougher.
So it's more about the money? It's more about the money?
No, not about the money. I think the issue is, if there is an issue where there is a problem, it has greater ramifications, and the route has always been debated and in legal courts of where the pipeline goes through, because nobody wanted it through their land because of that risk.
The problem with that, David, is that's the same oil that's been piped down the regular Keystone Pipeline. So it's not changed. The only difference is the XL pipeline would allow them to pump down about 890,000 versus 560,000 barrels per day. And so really, it's the same oil. It's almost like saying, okay, so we're going to restrict the amount of oil coming down.
Right.
The 11,000 jobs, I get it. That they would have run like any construction project. They would have run out. There's 1,000 or 10,000 when they build a building or they build a bridge. There's a whole rush of people and then a whole few people. So it becomes now a political football. Look, you laid off 11,000 people. Maybe they would have been on another year or two. I don't know. But you're right. It's short term.
Right. And they're not on yet. So it's not like we laid them off. They haven't started.
Right. And, the problem I see it as, when you look at the pipeline, it's still the safest method of transport of oil. We know that the Exxon Valdez did generations of damage.
Well, the Keystone Pipeline has already leaked 383,000 gallons.
Over those, that's less than a half a day.
That's still a lot.
Also, land cleanup is much easier than water cleanup. Much easier. No question. I mean, it just spreads and spreads and spreads. Also, the cost of pumping a barrel of gas through the pipeline is about $5. Bringing it about on train and rail cars and trucks is about $15. Did you see the crash of oil yesterday or today? Wasn't there a crash of a train carrying oil or a truck carrying oil somewhere, and they had to evacuate? Yeah, I have to look it up. I think I heard it on the news. I'm not talking about CNN or Fox.
Right, no. Right.
So, it's transport method.
So when I'm going to deviate just a little bit here, still on the Keystone Pipeline. But the thing that comes to my mind when I think about this and Joe Biden canceling the pipeline, all through the 2000s, we've talked about our dependency on foreign oil, right? So for the first time, it appeared that we had achieved a certain level of independence from foreign oil, specifically coming out of the Middle East, right? And for the first time in my lifetime, we've had a president that didn't have to start a war. And he himself, during one of the presidential debates, cited the fact that we aren't dependent on oil. We don't have to rely on, what's coming out of the Middle East. So my fear is that with this, we're going to go back to being dependent on oil, which means that we're going to go back to having these wars in the Middle East again. That's my big deal. And ironically, it's interesting that the day after the inauguration, the 21st, they were already talking about troops in Syria again. And I'm thinking, wow, here we go. The same old game.
Well, I'll counter that going, hey, we're still dependent on Canada. That's still foreign crude coming down. So I mean, it's an ally. Don't get me. It's better than, but we call Saudi Arabia an ally too. So I mean, I think we're still dependent. They can shut that pipeline whenever they want.
They are singly the largest.
But there's a huge difference. There's a huge difference between coming out of Canada and then coming out of Saudi Arabia
or Iran.
or
agree,
someplace
but
like that.
they're both foreign when we talk about independence.
Right, 50% of our
Okay,
oil.
so I'll just change the language to the Middle East then.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Again, 50% of our oil imports are from Canada, 50%.
Mhm.
That's a tremendous amount of oil.
Right, and I'll say, as Mark, you will gladly agree, we're getting that now.
Yeah,
So this is supplemental stuff that we're not losing anything because we've never had it.
like President Obama said, and it's rare that I agree with him, he's right. It was a political football. It doesn't solve climate change, and it surely doesn't create enough jobs.
Right,
Was it necessary? No.
right. I was going to say, we're building this, what we're talking about is potential gain that, so if we say we cut it, we're not losing anything. We're staying where we are, which is as independent as we've ever been. Are we?
Here's the only reason I thought it was a really, really good idea. It takes the oldest sections of the Keystone Pipeline and replaces them with brand new pipeline, which, as we know, these things are what, 20 years old? And like anything else, the Alaskan pipeline's having issues, and it would be better to put in new pipe. It's like anything else. I'm having my house repiped now from a flood. House's pipes were 22 years old. I'm thinking the same thing about the pipeline. Well, maybe we should put in new pipe. It's safer. It's probably much less impact on the environment. From that standpoint, it's probably good.
And Mark, I'll ask you, because one of the issues has been, then why can't they do that on the existing route? And because I know a lot of the issues in the Keystone was where it was going over the territories, and to redo the pipe in existing areas even bigger would be a solution that at least would pass that political test.
I hope you can see this, and I don't know if you can, but the red line, I guess the bottom of the triangle is the XL portion. So it was cutting out a whole bunch of mileage. You see that? That's the reason why they didn't want to redo it in the same area. Because it actually starts in the exact same point.
Right. I mean, it starts in Alberta. Right. So, and I will say, I don't think this has any effect whatsoever on anything that's happened in Texas right now. It has, I mean, this is all future stuff. So to blame or say this cuts where this hurts Texas, Texas is the biggest producing power state we have. They failed for many other reasons that have nothing to do. This pipeline has no effect and no change whatsoever on Texas's power issues.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. So before we go into Texas, Mark, if I'm understanding you correctly, you're saying that you would have preferred that the Keystone Pipeline stay open because it was new piping. So less likelihood of
leakage, environmental
erosion, all of that. And is it also true that there were zero emissions from this pipeline? Is that correct?
That's what they say.
That's what they say. Okay. And not to mention that both Canada and America were in alliance with this pipeline.
But and it leaked 383,000 gallons.
Again.
That's right.
Yes.
There's risk. I mean, there's risk and proven risk that is
But
Very
would you
tough.
agree, David, that there's less risk in dealing with Canada than going to the Middle East, like Iraq and Saudi Arabia?
If you're talking environmentally on US soil, taking out our agriculture and getting into the groundwater, no. That risk is in the pipelines that are going to go over where they put the pipeline. Is there long-term? Yes, and I'll be the first to say, let's look at alternative energy sources and move away from our dependent on fossil fuels. 100%, let's look at alternative power that would do it better than this would.
Okay, but in the meantime, we do need oil, we do need petroleum.
And we have plenty. Once again, this isn't affecting anything right now.
This is where I'm going to disagree with David. It would have given us an extra 300,000 barrels a day, and we're going to get them anyway. It's going to come down by rail car, and it's going to come down by train. The
Which
problem,
also adds to the environment.
well, there's per million barrels of oil, there are 0.227 occurrences by truck and by rail, and only 0.049 for a pipeline, which makes it 5 times safer than truck and rail. Or 5 times less emissions than truck and rail. No, that's a fact. I got it from.
No, I get the emissions, but the risk if something breaks on the pipeline is much greater than one truck breaking.
No, 73% of all oil spills from a line are minuscule in nature. One tanker coming down and crashing like the Exxon Valdez.
Oh, I'm not talking tanker. I was talking.
Okay. Well, that's the other way it comes. Tanker.
Gotcha. I'm with you now.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay,
David.
all right.
Somebody call me.
So what energy sources are you talking about?
I would like to more solar, more wind. I mean, geothermal, anything. I'm open to anything. I'm not saying it's all solar. I'm not saying it's all wind. We should look at nuclear again. There's other options that are available.
And are they even considering that?
They should. I mean, hey, Texas has all, yes.
Here's the problem. The solar panels are costed such that when you put them on your house, your warranty is up before you pay them off. The price structure, no, it's true.
No, I'm laughing at because I'm understanding what you're saying. Yeah.
And then let's take a look at an electric car. Running electric cars is no cheaper for the consumer than gasoline. Over a 5-year period, and there's many studies, you can find them all over the internet. And of course, let's not take a $100,000 Tesla into that equation because that's a status symbol, not a vehicle by which you're controlling your emissions. When they get to the point where they make it cost efficient to run small nuclear engines in cars, that would be fun, right? Or solar powered or electric battery cars, when they make them affordable, where the cost comes down below that of a gas powered car, people are going to go in. Gotta get the range up. I can't make Los Angeles without stopping at Barstow. And who the hell wants to stop at Barstow? Nobody. So until they get that, I mean, I would love to buy one of those brand new Hummer 1,000 horsepower electric vehicles, but I can't make it to LA. So right. What is it?
No, exactly. We're still in that middle zone of we're not there yet.
Yeah. So you don't want to access.
Okay, one thing that I find annoying, I think, alternative energy is great. I think it's overhyped just a bit. When it comes to the wind turbines, if you ever drive, the different places you'll drive throughout California, like when I'm traveling from here to Bakersfield or to Palm Springs or whatever, you'll notice you'll see the turbines on the hills. And the thing that always strikes me is that you will see miles, like in order to put those things up, it's just miles and miles of forest that they basically had to clear out, flatten the land. They're destroying all this vegetation to put these things up. And it feels to me like a contradiction, because these things, okay, they're supposed to generate energy and it's supposed to be better for the environment, but you're actually tearing up the environment to put those things in there. I mean, to me, I'd rather see trees growing. I'd rather see nature. Once again, I'm not advocating that we don't use them, but they do a lot of damage to the environment just to put them up. I mean, and you don't really think about this until you see miles and miles of land cleared just to have these things up. I'm hoping somebody can chime in and like, if you've seen this, then you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
What is the cost benefit analysis? There is
Apparently nobody has seen this. Does anybody travel? Does anyone drive?
Yes, you can go through Palm Springs and it's a forest full of all of these windmills. But the problem is that any power generating, whether it's solar, if you go out on the freeway going towards LA from Vegas or Vegas to LA, there's a huge solar field.
We just saw those. Mhm.
Okay, it is the most amazing thing in the, a solar collector field covering hundreds of acres. But is the damage done by building that solar collector field or putting up a windmill less than using gasoline?
I would say.
Benefit analysis.
But Mark, here's the tricky part. It's all what you measure, right? Because we can do that cost benefit, but in 5 minutes ago, the argument was, hey, isn't it great to get rid of the Middle East as far as our dependency? So how do you put that in your equation of that cost benefit?
You see, I wouldn't.
I know, that's my point. It's not evaluated there, but you're going to evaluate it on the other one.
Evaluate it because it's our land, our environment that we are screwing up. I know there's a global factor. I get that. But when you're putting up a windmill, you're tearing out some vegetation. Is the value of the windmill greater to the public good than the vegetation in that 12 by 12 foot square or whatever it is?
Mm-hmm.
To say, if I'm using an electric car, we have the batteries at the end we have to deal with, which is hazmat.
Mm-hmm.
Is the cost?
But why do we have to give up our dependent on oil? I mean, if we produce it, ourselves, I don't really see the problem with that. I mean, to me, it seems I don't see how that's any more destructive than all these different green energy sources that are supposed to be so good. I remember a while ago what was it? What's the additive that they were
MTBF.
the alternative fuels?
It's called
I mean, I can't even think of the word right now.
Was it ethanol?
The
MTBF.
ethanol. Ethanol was the thing that they were talking about in the early 2000s.
Right.
Then they started finding out that was destroying our oceans.
Yes.
You know, that was destroying our oceans because all the waste they were dumping into the rivers, and then that was flowing into the ocean, and it was basically killing everything. So I don't see why we need to stop our dependency on oil because that seems to be the safest thing.
Well, you know, there is always, when you try something new, there's the law of unintended consequences, right? You get something that you didn't bargain for. That was the ethanol issue.
So here's my quick question in the room is how many people here think climate change is partially where man has an effect on climate change?
I'm sure we do.
Okay.
I'm sure industrialization is bound to have an effect on the climate, right? I think to deny that happens, I feel like, yeah, you're not.
Is
really
rather
thinking.
Republican.
Okay. Well, here's the thing. I think that most Republicans do believe that industrialization does have an effect on the environment. I think the argument that a Republican would have is, what's the motive for things that we see like the Green New Deal? Because it doesn't really seem to be about the environment. It seems to be about something else.
Well,
it's not really about the environment.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a Republican. We have been warming up since the Ice Age. At the end of the Ice Age, we started warming up. There is no question. And yes, we have appeared to have warmed up a little bit faster over the last 150 years since the Industrial Revolution. But how much? What is caused by us and what is caused by the natural warming effect of the Earth?
Mm-hmm.
And will we go back into an ice age? Because
so, Mark, will you accept that man is partially responsible for climate change?
I couldn't give you a percentage, but I would say there is some modicum of things we have done.
Daniella?
I would say the same thing, but the question is, what is the percentage? Because if it's minuscule in relative to other things, we have to look at that reality and go from there, because making blanket statements like man is responsible for climate change when there's no accurate percentage, like you said.
Also,
David,
let's say I'll say over 25%. Let me give a number that I'll find shockingly low and going. Is 25% of climate change due to man?
I think that's high.
I think that's high too.
Every Republican is going to say that's high, David.
Exactly.
Because you would probably be in the 70s.
And all these things that we're doing to
What happened?
and all these alternatives that we're using, how much, okay, so if all of this, if we're at 25%, what can we do to bring that down? And all these things that we're using to combat climate change, how effective are they? And are they having any effect at all? And how do we quantify that?
Right. I mean, I actually know a few liberals who are not thinking climate change is,
I feel like there's no,
is as huge as their contemporaries. For example, recycling. I think they've showed analysis where the amount of resources to pick up the recycling and distribute it and melt it down, that it really didn't make that much of a difference at all. Yet we still do it. I still do it. It makes me feel better when I recycle. But when you compare apples to apples, is this really helping the environment? What we're doing is nothing compared to what the plastic factories are doing, and it's therefore not making that much of a difference at all.
All right, so let's go after the plastic factories. I'm good with that.
Yeah.
But you know what? Here's what we did. We don't use plastic water bottles at all. We have a huge Berkey water filter, and we fill up stainless steel or glass bottles. We do not use disposable bottles.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all for the value of not wasting and recycling and reusing. That's a value that speaks to me as well.
Also, they've proven that people get estrogen overload from plastic bottles. And then you have things like man boobs.
No, there's a study that men have 20% less testosterone now than they did 100 years ago. And there's also 20% more synthetic estrogen. So obviously this is taking an effect on our bodies, on our children, on perhaps, the gender, dysphoria phenomenon that we're seeing, which
Right.
I would still love to talk about that too. But the banning of women.
And this dishes back to government versus free market. I mean, ultimately, because we could say, hey, should we regulate synthetics? Should we regulate plastics, or should the buyer control it? And the repercussions are the repercussions.
So I would say, because it's a health issue, I would be for regulation. It's not a debate of environment, it's a debate of actual health, and it affects our children. So I would be for, and we're seeing, things being labeled BPA free, and there is a movement for that.
My problem with that is, then where does that stop? Why is the government allowing GMO mutated foods into the environment?
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah,
Because
I would like to know why. I would like to know why.
Why do they allow frankenfish?
Yeah, why is this allowed?
Why is all that allowed to kill us, and plastic bottles? Okay. As consumers, we have to become smarter. Okay. We have to take our health, and I didn't know this until I married my second wife. Hopefully, I don't have a third, but no, I'm just kidding. We have to take our health into our own hands. We eat no GMO products in our home. We don't use plastic bottles. We eat only organic, grass-fed, kosher meat. Kosher part, not everybody needs that, but we do. Okay, it is healthier. It is proven that the meats that we are ingesting, all this fast food, all these GMOs, all these modified products are killing us. They are killing our children with obesity, stage 1 and 2 diabetes as little kids. Why are we not fixing that problem in the United States?
Why is it even out? That's my whole debate, like half my life. Like, why is this allowed?
Say money,
Profit.
money and
Well, I mean,
lobbies.
why
Yeah.
can't we stop this
Yeah.
already? It's enough. I had this discussion last week at the table.
It's true. Why are we so concerned about recycling, although I do recycle, more so than, supporting.
It's the intake of what the
McDonald's?
what we're all putting in our body.
The quality of vegetables and fruits and cheeses in Europe and Israel compared to America is insanely ridiculous.
Israel has got more GMO products than almost any other country on the planet.
Well, I'm talking
That's
about
true.
in terms of how they're farming, though. I thought that their soil is far richer than ours. They have
It is
way
all
more regulations.
genetically modified products.
Either way, as Joel mentioned, profit. It's easier to feed a kid $1 worth of bags than trying to find an apple somewhere. 7-Eleven, I think now they have 2 apples on the counter, but it's hard to grab fresh fruits and apples on the go because it's the markets and the cost and the spoilage and the inventory
Ridiculous.
doesn't make it
Ridiculous.
worth it. It's not as profitable as a
Yeah.
Twinkie.
And
Yeah,
also,
and
they
it's also addicting. High fructose corn syrup,
Mhm.
all those
They have
chemicals are
also,
addicting.
they have also engineered fast food to make it extremely palatable. I don't know about
Yeah.
addictive, they say it is, but it's palatable. It gets every one of our senses.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's
Come on, there is
true.
nothing better than an In-N-Out burger.
yeah.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as a burger. I mean, just a drink,
I'm gonna have to support Mark on that.
Yeah, come on.
Well, I don't have the burger issue.
Common ground there.
I'm so glad that I don't have that, but there
When
are
I-
other,
When
Go
I
ahead,
cheat,
Joey.
that's where I go, In-N-Out.
Yeah. Go ahead,
Well,
Shirley. Yeah.
yeah, I was just going to say, it's true. First of all, I wanted to add something about the climate. I read an article that during the pandemic, because of the pandemic, temperatures have risen throughout the whole world. So, the lockdown has impacted the temperature. I would assume that it would go down because, according to what the scientists say, global warming, but obviously it went up. So I'm not even sure anymore. It just totally threw me off. And I said, I'm not even sure anymore what impacts the weather or the climate. But going to the food, I mean, yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, we're recycling, which is great. It helps save plastic or whatever it is that we need, resources. But at the same time, we can't really say that it's because it's protecting us from the toxins because we're eating so much junk, There's so much of it in the supermarket. You just see it and you just, want to grab it and just try it. But I try very much not to. I just have.
And then the government, about a week and a half ago, the government came out with a report that most of these independent agricultural farms that are grass-fed beef and non-GMO are all run by white supremacists. Now, we buy our meat from Cold Foods or Aaron's, which is also very kosher, very grass-fed. I don't think Aaron's is white supremacists. And I don't know why the government is saying that, but they came out with that report that almost all of them are white supremacists.
They have the facts of that.
No,
they-
it's not true at all.
That's just the narrative.
Mhm.
That's just the narrative that they want to push for whatever reason.
Right, I
That's
agree.
nonsense. It's nonsense.
I don't know if it's nonsense or not. Let's see the report and the source.
Because the people
Yeah,
happen
it's
to
about
be
the
white.
report.
Let's see the source.
Yeah.
I don't question. I ask for the source.
I promise I'll dig it
It's
up.
exactly how I am.
It's really just because the people happen to be white. So somehow they must be white supremacists.
I don't
Because-
think that's.
Are you assuming?
Once again,
that's-
let's see the source.
Are you assuming there's no black farmers?
Who could also be white supremacists.
That is true. Because that is true.
Right, because Candace Owens is one of the top ones.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. It's
It's nonsense.
it is it's unfortunate when you have headlines like that can potentially harm a very positive source for food for the environment when you bring in that kind of angle. But like David said,
and you know, and
see the source. Yeah.
can I, so I have to think, so they're putting that out there in the media, the government's saying that. So what's the motive? Because usually when they say something or they make that kind of a statement, there's an end game in mind, right? So what is the end game for saying something like that? Does that mean that we need to bring equity to farming so that we have to take land away from these white supremacists and distribute that to minorities, people of color? I mean, what's the end game?
Yeah, you're saying
there has to be a motive behind it.
Take a look at what happened in New York City. I mean, the actual, I mean, the riots and it got,
but there's ballet,
scared.
there's ballet.
And then they all fled the city and you were trying, and now all the properties are down in value and some people are buying and saying it's a buyer's market. So sometimes I wonder, you know, does it come across your mind why this happened?
Yeah.
No?
Sometimes it feels backwards, but I think at the end of the day, you got to do your own research and go underneath those headlines, because yes, headlines today have a narrative, have a seed that they want to plant, and it continues to fuel a lot of the polarization on topics and areas that it shouldn't even be political, like organic farming. So yeah. So, okay. So we have,
I will say, just on my 2-second research, this isn't news of today, Joel. It actually, I just looked on Fast Company, and a New York Times reported in 2019 that the white supremacists were becoming the president's farmers markets across the U.S. across the U.S. So it's been in there. It's not today's new story. It's been in the press for a year and a half. It might be being resurfaced again, but it's not a new story today.
No, but they're saying it.
Right. I agree.
Right, but I mean, there's all different types of people who go to farmers markets. I just don't understand why they have to make that connection.
Like I said, that's where we go to the source and actually read, opposed to just talking about a headline.
Right, but again, a lot of people don't read the source; they read the headline, and if they're associating organic foods,
Once again, there's plenty of ignorance out there. I'm not going to argue people for being ignorant and not looking into it and taking assumptions. That's going to happen everywhere, on everything, on every day, on every moment. So here, let's at least move past the headline and into the story behind it and why we're where, and see if it's real or if it's bullshit. I don't think any of us can make that claim from a headline.
Well, but even reading the story, though, basically the essence of it is that there's white supremacists that go to farmers markets, just like there's criminals and pedophiles who go to farmers markets.
Let me find the article that says they're owning farms.
That's where I had one. Like I said, it was my half a second look, but I will look.
Yeah.
And I don't think they were saying that. I think, and once again, I don't know what today's headline was. It was just the strong correlation between white supremacy and the want for organic foods. So what I'm seeing isn't the farming aspect, but the connection between the two.
Okay.
And white supremacy seems to be anything that's American these days, right?
I didn't know.
Well, I mean, white supremacy it just seems to be anything that's American these days is white supremacists.
I mean,
I will give you a little bit of white nationalism on that, but white supremacy goes another level.
Here, I see the article. There's a disturbing nexus of organic food and white supremacy.
So that says organic food. It doesn't say about farming.
Oh, okay.
And I want to know who wrote that article also. I would like to see them and know what their background is.
Yeah, well, this is from, it's from fastcompany.com.
Right, and they're citing the New York Times, though.
Yeah.
So once again, we are looking at surface, not real behind, and getting real information at this point, because we're doing this on the fly without research worth thought. So who knows? But I do think there's a difference between white nationalism, white supremacy, and I don't think it's necessarily over-labeled.
But let me ask you something, David. The times that I endorse CNN and MSNBC, I'm almost always hearing about white supremacy and domestic terrorism as if this is the most immediate important threat of our agenda.
No.
And it seems a little bit inaccurate and disproportionate.
Talk to the FBI. It's coming from our government sources. It's not me saying it.
But there's also many other. I mean, the lockdowns, the teachers' unions, immigration, opening borders. There's so many more pressing things.
There's a lot of things, but hey, Fay Ray is a pretty solid Republican running the FBI, picked under Trump. It was his number one concern. I don't think we should discount it because we think there's other things. There's plenty out there to say it is the biggest issue we've had over the past couple of years and rising.
Let's for a moment, it's that terrorism is in fact the biggest threat to white supremacy in the United States. Let's follow that for 1 second or 1 minute. Okay, how many people is that? Nobody has quantified anywhere if that's 10 terrorists, 1,000 terrorists, 1,500. I don't know. So when they claim it's the worst, well,
what's the comparison?
Right.
What's the ratio?
The ratio between domestic and international, how many international ones are in our country? The answer is probably very few, but there are more domestic white terrorists. I'm sure there are, but what is the quantification number? How many?
Well, how about, Mark, I'll try to come up with something by next week and see what I can find.
Okay, I will agree that we have probably more white nationalist terrorists in this country than any other country, but I don't know how many that is. Like the Proud Boys, this is interesting because I happen to look at their website. There's not that many of them. They don't answer emails. They're unorganized. They're disorganized. I don't know how they could find their asses with both hands.
And I'll say this, and I will, since you mentioned the Proud Boys, I'll chime in to this. They're not terrorists. I'm sure that there are a lot of shady characters. There are probably people in there that are white supremacists, white nationalists. But I'm saying this because I've been around these people. I know some of these people, right? I've met and hung out with Enrique Tarrio, the FBI informant who was the leader of the Proud Boys, right? So they're another one of those groups that has been completely mischaracterized. Now, I have been a person, I met Daniella at the Trump rallies, and I've been skeptical of the Proud Boys because I feel like when they show up, there's violence and there's trouble, usually because they're confronting the opposition, which is usually BLM and Antifa. Having said that, they may be a lot of things, but to characterize them as a terrorist group, that's media propaganda because they are not.
Okay,
but Joel, let me give you the exact opposite argument that on Antifa, because people say, hey, they're terrorists. I'll explain just as Mark did. They can't get their ass together. There's no loose link. They're also loose. Each one I've talked to, have seemed really nice, and they're just there to protest other people. They don't have an agenda on their own. It's the same story.
Let me tell you why you're wrong. Let me tell you why you're wrong. Because the difference between Proud Boys and Antifa, okay, Antifa, they terrorize you. There's levels to what they do, okay? One of the things that they do, first of all, they burn cities down. They They attack people with baseball bats. Hold on, listen to me. I've been on the street with them, right? Mm-hmm. I've had conversations with them. They justify their violence. They show up with baseball bats, with machetes, with tear gas, with tasers, and they use these things on people. They were becoming famous for taking milkshakes where they would put dry cement in them and throw them in people's faces, right? They burned down federal buildings. Proud Boys aren't doing this. And then on another level, what Antifa does, and I've had direct contact with people that have been the victim of this, and I've talked to people that have done this. They get your information and they put it out there in the public to terrify you into silence. And they call it doxing. They do this to terrify you into silence. They characterize you as a white supremacist or a white supremacist sympathizer. And when they put your information out there, you will receive death threats and phone calls from all over the country from people to harass you. So yes, they are a terrorist group, and they're not just a loose-knit group. They have chapters. They have chapters and they have conventions. They do. They're not just a loose-knit group. It's an organization.
I see them identical.
It is
to
an
Proud
organization.
Boys. They have chapters. Same with Proud Boys.
Well,
I mean, I see Proud Boys coming to Oregon here fully armed.
You're right. Yeah.
Why are they?
do
Why?
come fully
Joel,
armed.
why are they going this far? Why? What's hitting them that they're
Which
doing
one?
these things?
Why?
All of them.
Which
all of
group?
them.
Okay,
It's
so
honestly,
Proud.
okay. I was going to say
Okay,
they're
to answer that question,
okay.
Proud Boys was, you had Antifa that was burning down cities, and then
Why? Why are they
Proud
burning
Boys
down
formed
cities?
out of that
Why are they burning down cities?
because they believe that America is a fascist place, that capitalism is fascism, and they don't believe in fascists. You don't put up with fascists because Hitler was a fascist, right? You don't talk to a fascist, you punch a fascist. These are the words that they use.
Yeah. I will say
Yeah, I've had lots of personal experience with these people.
Okay.
I will say, to me, they're the flip side of a coin. They're both, to me, they're both the same. They're both on the far, far right and the far, far left who have issues with America and want to fight and want to take advantage of whatever incidents they could to cause problems.
But why are they feeling that way?
Disenfranchised, I'll go with.
Okay.
Joel,
but-
what are your thoughts, Joel?
What are my thoughts?
Yeah.
There are a lot of similarities between them because Proud Boys was, in a sense, the remedy to Antifa, because they show up when Antifa was burning down cities. Proud Boys formed and they came to protect the businesses that Antifa was destroying. In a sense, they were saying, if you're going to come and burn it down, you got to go through us to do it. And they come armed, they come ready to fight. Is that the right way to do it? Yeah, that's controversial. And I've seen them show up in different places. And yeah, I feel like there's a lot of shady characters, a lot of troublemakers, a lot of guys that look like they just got out of prison. I'm sure if you search some of them, you'll find white supremacist tattoos on them. So I'm not trying to justify them, but they're not the same. I would say Antifa is a terrorist group. I would say Proud Boys is not. That's my experience.
Right.
That's
so
my experience.
Your point is the Proud Boys would not fall under the category of white supremacy because the Proud Boys are all different types of races. They are proud to protect America. But there could be shady characters in those groups.
I think to me, that's a game. I mean, we could easily move Proud Boys and say Oath Keepers instead and not have this worry about the semantics of they're terrorists or not. I think Oath Keepers, we could say, is one step beyond Proud Boys. Would you agree with that, Joel?
I really don't know about the Oath Keepers, so I can't really speak on that.
Percenters, it's much more in their DNA, much more in their charter than Proud Boys.
Yeah,
Proud Boys,
I've heard of them. I've heard of them. I don't know about them. I can only say Proud Boys because I've been on the street with them, not intentionally, just kind of happened, So,
right.
Yeah.
Okay, but the bottom line is, and if we need to do more research on this, we shall for next week. It just seems like if every other half an hour from the mainstream media is this narrative of white supremacy and domestic terrorism and connecting that to conservatives today, I think it sets up a false narrative, and it avoids some of the big issues at hand. Like, you know, you're saying, you know, the FBI, how are they ranking their information? Because that might be true in terms, you know, in terms of how they're allocating their information. Like, white supremacy might be more of an issue than international terrorism. Fine. But like Marc was saying, what is the ratio? And if we're only focusing on those FBI numbers and not focusing on what's really hurting Americans today, it gives a false sense of where we should be putting our focus. It just seems like it's being hammered over the nail over and over again.
I'm watching the anti-Semitism and the cases rise higher than we probably ever had in our lifetime in America is scary.
I don't think it's all coming from white supremacy. I think it's coming a lot from the left.
And that, of course, studies don't bear that out. I'll be happy to show you. I'm not saying it's not on both sides, but
well, let's bring up the comment on SNL then.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Which, you know, that
like I said, it comes from both sides. I'm not doubting that, but
it comes from both sides.
I might have a different opinion of SNL, and I'm Jewish, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that I thought it was that anti-Semitic. In fact, I don't know that I thought it was anti-Semitic at all. We pay comedians, we go to see them, and they make commentary on today's world, their lives. It's no more anti-Semitic than that guy Niemeyer, who was on AGT making fun of handicapped people, of which he's one. Okay? Could it be offensive to some people? Absolutely. But they're comedians. They're paid to make people laugh. I went to see Eddie Griffin. You know who Eddie Griffin is?
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we get a lot of free tickets in Vegas because we live in Vegas and we know a lot of people, so we get a lot of free tickets. You know, being Jewish, I could make the joke that we love free stuff. Eddie Griffin got up there and he spanked the blacks, the whites, the Christians, the Jews, the political system. He went up and down everything from top to bottom. He used the N-word. He used the F word. There were some people who were uncomfortable because we were probably one of the few white people in the audience. I thought it was very funny, okay? He is paid to make us laugh. They're all paid to make us laugh and think from the time of Lenny Bruce and make us think about political things that are going on in our country. Eddie Griffin did a great job at that. Was some of it could be considered anti-Semitic? Could some of it be considered anti-black, anti-white, anti-whatever? Absolutely. Because he was making fun of the ridiculousness of this situation.
And I would completely support that. I think one of the casualties of our times is comedy. It's very hard to be funny today. I do not envy comedians at all. But what I take issue with is that, like you said, your comedian was making fun of everybody. And that feels safe, you know? But that comment, does everyone know what comment we're referring to? So, Joel, Joel, do you know?
No.
Surely? Okay.
No.
So the comment was done by, I forgot what the black comedian guy, the guy who does Weekend Update, he was referring to Israel's vaccine situation and how they have the vaccine, but they're only giving it to the Jewish half of the country. Which
it's how you say it makes it funny or not funny, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
careful when he said the Israel is
but
one of
again, if I felt
is one of the first
if SNL was more balanced in terms of its humor.
Is one of the first countries to vaccinate 50% of its people, and I'm probably going to get this wrong, and we assume that's the Jewish half.
You know what? I tend to agree with Daniella because it's kind of, I don't really get the joke, but I think to me what it does is it makes people think, oh, Israelis are selfish. They don't want to vaccinate the other population, the Palestinian population. And they say that in a joke, there's always some truth. So this is the guy who was making the joke. In his mind, Israel is prejudiced against the Arab population. And the truth of the matter is that the Arabs didn't want to get the vaccine.
The Palestinians.
I think that's irrelevant. I'm going to take Mark's position on this, and I'll agree. And I'm going to be the tactful. I was offended and I didn't care. I didn't think it, I mean,
Well,
I thought it was bad.
care.
It was a wrong joke, but it's from Saturday Night Live. I'm a comedian. You're like, that was wrong. Great. Move on. I don't think there's much more than that.
I don't really think that you understand how I feel. I'm not offended for myself as a Jew, but I am aware of the consequences. It's like adding more and more reasons to hate Jewish people.
That's clear misinformation. I mean, Israel has given first of all, the population of Israel welcomes all religions. A lot of people don't even realize that multiple religions, the Arab population is 33% of the country.
I don't think we have to defend Israel. I think we're all in accordance that they're giving vaccines great and that the statement was a joke.
No, we are aware, but most people are not. And so it's a false, every funny joke has some truth to it. This was not based on truth.
So it was a bad joke. Danielle, I'm going to get back to a comment you said if Saturday Night Live was more fair. Mm-hmm. And I see in a lot of your comments this need for fairness. And I don't think the world will never be as fair as you want it to be. It's a judgmental line. And I think, if you're going for balance in Saturday Night Live, I don't know if that's the place to look.
Well, I was referencing it to what Mark was saying. This comedian was like, saying something about everybody, it's fine.
But I guarantee if you look through Michael Che's history, I guarantee you he's offended plenty of other people.
Oh, absolutely. You know what I tell my kids? If you want fair, go to the Orange County. There's one every year.
I know, but the problem is that Jews are victimized. And
we allow ourselves to be. You're only a victim if you allow yourself to be a victim.
What do you mean? If somebody comes with a gun, a knife.
I have one too.
Where do you live? You live in.
You're only a victim when you allow yourself to be a victim in life.
Where do you live? You live in Las Vegas?
Currently, I live in Las Vegas. I've been barred from many states.
All right. So if you live in Las Vegas, what's the law concerning guns?
You think we have
Are
one?
you allowed, are citizens allowed to carry guns in Las
We're allowed
Vegas?
to open carry here without a license. You can carry openly. You can also have a gun in your glove box loaded without a permit here in Las Vegas, unlike California, where you have to have the bullets and guns separate.
Okay.
I have a concealed carry permit, which means I can carry a gun anywhere except in California and 8 other states.
Okay, in New York, we cannot carry guns.
Only in New York City. Only in New York City.
New York City?
Right. New York State, you
Okay.
can. I've lived in I was born and raised in New York City, and I've lived in Syracuse.
Okay, so whatever it is, I live in New York City, and people in New York City are not allowed to carry guns. And you can't expect somebody who's victimized by somebody who's used to hitting and beating up. You can't expect somebody to pull out a gun just because you do. So
There's plenty of people in New York City who own guns.
We moved to a ridiculous tangent and away from the thing of being victimized. So I think Mark's basic comment is, hey, they offended you. You could either go into the woes, or you could say, yeah, that was a bad joke. I don't care. That's not a big thing. The Jews are fantastic and take the empowerment.
My personal opinion on that, I think we need to get back to a point where we can say that was a bad joke and move on. Mm-hmm. I understand the offense, right? Especially coming from a snarky show like Saturday Night Live. I can't even stomach that show any longer, right? However, I really want to get to the place where we're not trying to make everything fair, because the more we try to make things fair, it seems like we ruin everything. Because things aren't going to be fair. Things aren't always going to be equal, and I don't think that they're supposed to be equal. Imagine what a bland world that would be. So I like the idea that, you know what, I was offended and okay, I move on.
All right, you know what?
And I know that's kind of a,
Let me just pose
and
a
I don't
question.
want to be insensitive to the plight of the Jews. I understand that.
And
Let me just pose a question to you. Let me just pose a question. Most of us here are Republicans. One of us is Democrat. So how would you feel if every week SNL would be just joking about leftists and radical left? And, that's their thing, making fun of the left all the time. How would you feel about it? I mean,
you're asking me?
Yeah, how would you feel about it?
I'd feel like you guys. I wouldn't watch it. Whatever, that's my choice.
There you go. There you go. But
I wouldn't complain about it. It's what it is.
However, it's like it gets everybody.
There's other forms of entertainment in this world. There's 40 other channels.
Those who are watching it will feel more encouraged to poke fun at you every time they see you in the street, and it's like it's kind of legitimizing this kind of behavior as a matter of it's like.
So I'll step back and say, and they're riding it to the bank.
I've got a question for you. If Michael Che was Jewish, would the joke have offended you as much?
Listen, a lot of comedians who are Jewish are not every Jew likes them. They come on. I mean, there's this comedian who's anti-Semitic. I mean, I don't really watch him, but I know my brother. He says, "Oh, he's just like he doesn't like him." So the whole thing is that it's not true. I mean, just because someone is Jewish and he's making fun of Jews doesn't mean that I'm going to accept it. It's like.
But do you find it less offensive?
No, I wouldn't find it less offensive. I wouldn't find it less offensive. I think he sold out. That's how I would look at it. Like he has to. What? I mean, what could be so motivating him to make fun of Jewish people, and he's Jewish?
I've never heard that.
I think we're over talking a bad joke.
Yeah, it was a bad joke, and I guess, David, going back to your point though, anti-Semitism is on the rise. So when it comes from SNL, it just amplifies that.
Right,
but it's not the safest place right now, like you said, for Jews. And I feel, I just feel though that there's so much more sensitivity to being sensitive to Black humor today than and a lot of permissibility to anti-Semitic humor, even if it's a bad joke. So but I hear your point, and you make a valid point. Life is not always fair. You can't have the ideal conditions, and I do love comedians, and I love to laugh, and we do need more of that. And I just wish it was a safer place to laugh and take it in stride.
What is the solution to it? Rather than I don't really like the idea of being accepting of that. So what could be a solution to that?
I think the solution is what happened organically. People said that was stupid and wrong, and he'll probably think twice next time. I mean, that's the organic solution. 20 people, a couple hundred people, or a couple thousand might not watch it next week. Some people will write bad things to him, and that's how you change. You slowly ostracize and move on.
We don't want censorship.
Sorry?
Yeah. For me, I think that's the difference between a conservative mindset and a progressive mindset. The progressive mindset wants to introduce some legislation to regulate that, or do something to make sure that doesn't happen. And as much as I don't like what was said, the alternative is going to be a lot worse. So I will put up with that. I hate SNL. I can't stand that show because I hate hearing them talk about people like me like we have no sense. So I just don't watch it. And hopefully a lot of other people that think like me won't watch it either. And then organically it will disappear because our ratings will drop. But the alternative of actually trying to do something to regulate that is going to make it worse.
No,
Yeah.
I didn't mean regulated. I meant, what is the solution? Should we like form
The
our
only-
own?
Yeah, let's form a committee and cancel him out. We love that.
Oh, God.
No.
Should we form our own, the truth of the matter is there is conservative,
Here's the great thing about television. You can write and tell them what an ass he is, and then you don't have to watch the show. And if enough people don't watch the show, just like Joel said, eventually the advertisers won't pay for it because the people aren't watching it. Eventually the show
it's
goes
not
away.
happening fast enough though.
Never-
It's not
never will.
happening Fast enough. So the alternative would be for a comedian in the conservative ranks to form his own comedy show and to,
Well, we have
people,
a great comedy show that we conservative can watch right now.
Fox.
No, CNN, MSNBC. You knew where I was going with that, didn't you? CNN comedy show. Don Lemon.
Oh my God.
He makes me laugh, and Rachel Maddow makes me
I
laugh.
know. That's great, Mark. I'm glad they can make you laugh. I'm not there.
I can't stomach her.
Yeah.
I used to be a huge fan of Rachel Maddow.
You know what's amazing, David? Great minds think alike, like you and I. It's a shame that you have this warped political aspect.
Mhm.
Someday
Don't worry, me and your son will get to you eventually.
someday you'll fix it.
He's
Okay.
going to change his tune in 2024.
Although David and I are politically very opposed,
Mhm.
there's plenty of ground we can agree on as
That's right.
over the last few weeks. And we do, I think, I'll speak for David, I think we enjoy each other.
Mhm.
You know, it's not anything personal. We just have a different
Well,
look at things. David's an idiot. No, I'm just kidding. Wait,
Sure.
if my son comes on next week, David, you're going to see somebody who's more liberal than you.
Yeah.
say most, I'm actually, despite the positioning here, I'm not on the progressive side. We're the progressive party of the Democratic agenda.
Oh,
I'm
he
against
is.
most of them.
Yeah.
He is.
Right.
You know who I'm going to give credit to this week? AOC. You know, I
Mhm.
bashed her pretty good, but I will say when she says things the right way, and she called out that you could name those camps anything you want,
Mhm.
but it's still the same thing. When she was talking about the children in the cages.
Oh, nice. Thank you, AOC. Love
Yeah,
that.
no, you know, I give her credit, and she's come out against Cuomo pretty hard too.
Mhm. And done some amazing work for Texas.
Yeah, I've got a question for the group because I'm going to have to leave at 8:30.
Yeah.
What do you think happens to Cuomo in the long run?
Yeah. Let's take a poll. Will he be impeached?
right.
Will he be asked? I mean, minimally, does he have to give his Emmy back? What do you think, Shirley?
I don't know what to think. I'm really surprised it came to this level. I mean, I thought he was going to get away with it totally, but I am just amazed that right now everybody is angry at him. Everybody wants to impeach him.
Even Alec Baldwin.
I don't know who he is. I mean, I do. I just don't. I mean, Alec Baldwin should really, shouldn't say anything because he never says anything right at the right time. So I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, you like him, obviously.
And good go.
I don't know. But anyway, the whole thing is that I really, it's like, you don't know how I feel inside. I'm just so like, ooh, everything that he was supposed to do. He was supposed to protect the elderly. He was supposed to protect the city. He let everything go. It's like, what was he waiting for? It's like, he's not doing anything. And he does beautiful conversation to make all of us happy and comfortable and whatever. But then the thought of all the horrible that he didn't, all the horrible that he did and that he didn't protect the city.
Who was that?
I-
All was all scripted.
Does he get impeached and thrown out of office? That's the
I-
question.
Nope. No, it's not going to
I will
happen.
be surprised if he gets impeached and gets to jail, I mean, maybe he'll be impeached. I don't know if he'll go to jail, but I don't know. I can't really tell, but I know.
When
that
does his
I'm
term end in 2022?
supposed, yeah, the end of, yeah, I just hope that it ends sooner, a lot sooner.
He's not going to be impeached.
Yeah.
It's not going to happen.
I don't know.
It's like Newsom and a recall. It's too hard of a
Well-
process that those things just don't happen.
But with Newsom, they got all the signatures plus.
Yeah, we're
They've
getting
done it
close.
before. It's still an impossible task.
No, but it happened with Gray Davis.
California.
It's not going to happen.
But there was a difference when Gray Davis was impeached and he got voted out. California was not 63% Democratic.
Right,
Where today it wasn't, it was about 50-50.
right. It was much closer.
But
I predict that Mr. Cuomo, nothing happens, he skates free.
That would agree.
In fact, we won in 2022.
Oh my God. I think
agree.
he's just going to quietly go away. I do think there will be more headlines, more sexual allegations. I would like to see his Emmy being taken back. I would like to see his star fallen, but I don't think he will be impeached.
I don't think they should take his Emmy back. He won it for his performance. It was a very good performance.
He'll be fine.
it was a very good
Now
one, yeah.
the gold
Right.
standard of governors, it now moves to Ron DeSantis.
Oh, yes. Ron DeSantis 2024.
Ooh,
Yes.
scary.
Yeah. It's fine, David.
For president, you mean, or for vice president?
For dog catcher, anything.
Or Nikki Haley, Ron DeSantis, or Candace Owens, Ron
Nikki
DeSantis.
Haley, I'm not even sure she's gonna.
She
I
gotta
know,
go.
she's on
No
Trump
Nikki
shit
Haley.
right now. I
Sorry.
know. Yeah, well, we have time for that.
She's not going anywhere.
I'm having fun watching you Republicans split in two.
Yeah. Well, your progressive party might be next too, you know.
Well, we already did it, right? We
Yeah.
went through that and somehow solidified in
Yeah.
the middle. You Republicans are going to play the game the next 4 years.
However, I tend to disagree with you on that, and I have an article that I was saving for this. Someone by the name of, well, she was the advisor to Clinton, and she came out with a book. There she is. Her name is
Monica Lewinsky.
no.
She wasn't as much
No.
as an advisor.
She was
I
in
miss
Tucker.
Monica.
She was in Tucker Carlson, and her name is Wolf. Last name is Wolf, Naomi Wolf. And she wrote quite a number of books. And she was saying that we are this close to being totalitarian. She's a Democrat, and she regrets having voted for Biden because she.
Oh my God, and she was on Tucker Carlson?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't
Okay,
know if you can see
Shirley,
this.
send me
She
that
was
link. I can
Somebody
put
who
it out.
somebody who Fox will even say is only entertainment and not news.
Well, that's what they say also about CNN.
No, but they said it in the
Carlson
courts.
is-
Yeah.
is
No, but they said that
informative.
also
As a
in
matter
court,
of fact,
which
he's
you're
the
mad
one who
at.
came up
Yeah.
with the Bobolinsky interview, which nobody wanted to discuss
Yeah.
until after the election, and that's when they called it headline news, breaking news. He's got pretty good
Yeah.
things going on in his show. He has a lot of things.
As
that
much
nobody-
as you guys can't watch Rachel Maddow,
Uh-huh.
I find Tucker that same pain of crappiness.
Okay, well, that's fine.
Okay,
and
but
we have
anyway,
that
I'm
offline.
not really talking
But
about
yes.
Tucker Carlson. I'm
Yes.
talking about Naomi Wolf.
Yeah.
Naomi Wolf.
I'm confused
Yeah.
about what subject we're on. What subject are we
No,
on?
we're-
right
that's
now?
for
I'm
next week.
confused.
Right now-
Irrelevant authors for 100.
Yes. No, we made our Cuomo predictions, and
That's
we
the
were
thing,
giving
and we
our.
were talking about
Uh-huh.
the Democrats and the
Yeah.
Republicans, and the Republicans are split up right now. And you said, David, you said that the Republicans are split up right now. And I'm saying, it seems to me like right now, the Democrats are having buyer's remorse, and they're not exactly.
Oh, no.
Okay.
United.
Well, let's
I would disagree. I don't think
let's-
there's any
let's-
buyer's remorse.
let's not go there at the end of the call. We can start with that next week.
Surely, Tucker telling me that the Democrats are thinking twice isn't a solid source to me.
Well, he's not the only source,
Okay. So
but
Shirley,
I'm saying-
that's your homework. If you would like to share more about the buyer's remorse, you can
Sure.
definitely present that. I'm sure David will have some counters. But in terms of the common ground, I think we kind of brought some clarity to the Keystone issue. And what else do we talk? Oh yeah, and that, there's not necessarily going to be all perfect safe spaces, but we all agree that comedy is a great unifier. We all be able to take a joke, and their jokes should be told, and we do need more comedy for everybody to enjoy more equally. Yeah, so let's keep going. There's still so much more to talk about. I'd love to talk about the unions more next week. What's happening in California with its schools not being open anytime soon is ridiculous.
They should be banded is what I think.
Yes. So if anyone else has another big topic that they'd like to suggest, just let me know. And Mark, we look forward to having your son next week.
Yes.
I hope so.
Okay,
I can
guys.
be nice and quiet and watch him go.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Reinforcements, Dave. You need reinforcements. You're outnumbered.
Yes, David. Yes. This is going to be fun. This is going to be fun. Okay, guys, we'll have a great week. Until next time.
Take care.
And tell your friends about the show. Share it. Share the, I'm going to put it on a podcast so it's easy to share auditorially, audio, not just YouTube, but feel free to share it. Let people know about it. We'd love to have them join in the conversation.